Hi, Monique. How are you?
Hi. Why is my picture not on? There we go.
There
Hello.
you go. No,
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very well.
Awesome. Cool. So after we get done, so as soon as we're done with the recording, because obviously I'm already recording, so I'm going to have to edit this out, obviously. But as soon as we're done with the interview, I'll hang up. And then if you can get me like a picture of you that I can use on like my, like promo stuff.
Sure.
To put like on, like the episode images and stuff.
Yeah, okay.
That would be good. And yeah, so and I'm planning to publish it next Tuesday because Tuesdays are when I'm usually publishing.
Okay.
And the last episode I just published yesterday, I actually even told people at the end that I was interviewing you on the next episode. So I better have it out. Otherwise, that might be kind of weird. I tell people you're coming and then you don't. Okay, so let's jump right in then.
Excellent.
Okay. So this is, of course, if you've already been listening to the intro, you know that this is Anna Laura Brown with Healthy Happy Autoimmune. And for today, we have a special guest on the podcast. So we have Monique from Ardour Wellness. And if you recognize the accent a little bit, you'll know that she's originally from the land down under, from Australia. So this is really cool. It's the first time I've had anybody from Australia that I've been able to interview on this podcast. But, maybe in the future we'll have even more. So Monique, why don't you start by telling me a little bit, or telling us rather, a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Of course. My name's Monique and I'm from Australia. I actually grew up in a really tiny country town. It's only like 300 people in a farming community. What I do is, I run my own business. It's called Ardour Wellness. And is a wellness coaching business. Plus, I do a Reiki Practitioner as well. And I specialize with people with chronic health conditions, as well as I work with NDIS clients. That's an Australian thing. It's like a national scheme for people with disabilities. So like life coaching for them, helping them with life skills and everything. So generally it's kind of similar to like counseling, psychology, but it's more like the holistic approach of like addressing your emotions, addressing your stress levels, also as well as like your exercise, your nutrition, all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
That's cool. So do you have a background in training in like psychology or sociology or that kind of thing too then?
So my training is in wellness coaching, professional studies in wellness coaching through Wellness Coaching Australia. And I've always had a fascination in psychology. I did try and study it at uni a couple of times actually, but uni was not for me. The studying was not my forte. And then in wellness coaching, you do learn branches of psychology. So you learn like positive psychology, motivational interviewing, a bit of CBT. Yeah, CBT. And so you learn a lot of branches, as well as like my own interest in like reading my own books and following other people and my own personal learning in it. Anything to do with psychology, I just like dive straight in. I love it so much. So yeah.
That's awesome. That sounds super fascinating. And I'm sure it's super useful because, like you said, you do the life coaching for people that have disabilities where their focus there is probably a little more on the psychology. But the reality is that anybody who has dealt with any clients or anybody that is looking to help change and improve their health, sooner or later you realize that it's not only just about the food and your health, it's also about your psychology, if you will, and your mindset and your habits and all that kind of thing. So that's definitely useful, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And like one of the things I feel very strongly towards is like you can take immaculate care of your health, you can do all the exercise, you can eat correctly and everything like that. But if you're not addressing what's going on in your mind and what I've heard to refer to as doing your mental housekeeping, then you're only doing 50% of the work, because it's just such a strong impact on not only what's going on with you and your health, but it's also such a strong impact on like how you are addressing your health, like your emotional state, your mental state is going to impact like how motivated you are to take care of yourself and all that sort of stuff. It's also interrelated. So working with all of the combination of them all together.
Awesome. Cool. So Monique, why exactly then did you decide to specialize in chronic illness? Because, that's a pretty hefty niche to want to take on. And I know a lot of people, if anything, they actually avoid talking to
Yes, it's
clients or working with clients with chronic illness.
definitely can be an overwhelming thing to work with just because like yeah, it's so complicated. But I actually got into chronic health because so I'm 28 now, but when I think I was about 22, I developed chronic health conditions myself. And I was just very, very unwell for a very long time. And I found it was just massive gaps in the industry. And I know that others around Australia have felt the same because I've spoken to people. I've also spoken to people in other countries, I believe, as well as people in America, and they found the same. Is that when you have a mysterious illness, when you have something the doctors really don't understand, and like it can be labeled as psychosomatic. So in some ways, people will approach it of like, oh, you're just making it up or you're just over exaggerating it. I just found that you just don't find help and you don't find people that understand. And most of the time when I was going to allied health professionals, when I was going to doctors' offices, um, I it just left in tears because they wouldn't listen, they wouldn't pay attention, and they would just simply be like, oh, you have anxiety and depression. I'm like, well, no, I don't, like I'm just really unwell. And so when I discovered um, coaching as a career and then discovered wellness coaching, I started to learn about it and I was like, oh, like this is an amazing career, and I just want to be the person that I was looking for in those really hard moments. Because yeah, you really just want someone that's going to listen to you and understand you and show you that unconditional support no matter what you're dealing with your health. And so I want to be that person for people and try and fill that gap a little bit.
That's awesome, Monique. Yeah, because I know that that's the truth for a lot of us. A lot of us begin working in the health and wellness space because we didn't get the help we wanted, or we
Yeah.
like we can help people along the whole journey that we've already traveled. We're just a little bit farther along than some people, so we want to reach out
Yeah.
and help them. And, yeah, it's traditional medicine. They typically are known for not being able to figure out a lot of the chronic illness, a lot of the
Yeah.
autoimmune, that kind of thing. So those of you, if you're listening to this, chances are very high you've experienced this. You've been to at least one doctor where they basically ran a bunch of tests and told you nothing was wrong and sent you
Yeah.
home, or that said it
All
might
the
be in your
time.
head or something like that. And you're thinking, yeah, I don't think so. I know that happened to me at least 3 or 4 times. So,
So yeah, so many times. And then you end up doctor shopping and then you just end up lost, and like it's just, and like I think one thing that I found I started to get very fed up with was just playing the guessing game. Like I'd go to a health practitioner and I'd explain, and at that point no one really knew that. So my conditions were the original diagnosis was functional movement disorder or functional neurological disorder, which is kind of like conversion disorder.
mhm.
And when I was dealing with that, I'd go to people and I'd try and explain what's going on, and they just didn't know how to treat it. So you're just going to people and you're just playing a guessing game with people, and you're like, I just want someone that knows what they're doing, someone that knows what they're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and somebody that's going to give you more than just the whole pill for an ill thing.
Yes, exactly.
For sure, absolutely. So who would you say is your ideal client then?
Um, I think about this a lot because in the coaching industry, obviously, like one of the main things you're taught at the very beginning is have an ideal client, have like your client avatar, who are you wanting to work with, kind of thing. And I think when it comes to my line of work, I find that quite difficult because I don't find people with chronic health conditions. There's such a vast variety of people. Like I don't think I think with all the people I've worked with, they all vary so much and they're all different in so many different ways. So but I do find there can be common things. Like, so no, I don't necessarily need like a specific person or traits or anything, but what I do need in a client, or what would be ideal for me to have a client, is someone that's open to the idea of. So my line of work is very much addressing um, what's going on internally, and doing the inner work with you. And I do very much believe that a lot of our health conditions are our bodies trying to communicate with us, and our emotions trying to express themselves. So like I say, like suppressed emotions and everything is trying to communicate with us, and your body's just trying to be like, hey, pay attention to me. So with an ideal client, it's someone that's willing to do that work, someone that's willing to go internal and find out what's going on with them and trying to connect to their body a little more. I do notice, like, I have very common themes though, like with the people I work with, it generally is they've dealt with lots of trauma. They deal with a really big lack in confidence. They deal with, having trouble understanding what's going on and how to connect to their body. So there are common themes in like I suppose, in the life experience sense, I guess, and where they're at in the moment, I guess, when they come and find me.
Okay, awesome, cool. And do you find that most of your clients are typically Australian, or do you get clients from other countries throughout the world too, or what is that?
So far it's only been paid clients have only been Australian.
Mhm,
I did have because I lived before COVID, I was over living in the UK. So
mhm.
I had a few people over there that I was helping, but I wasn't charging or anything because at the time I was just traveling around and everything. But so far, yeah, just paid clients have just been Australian clients.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And would you aspire to potentially build a business around the world and have clients in other countries?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's all online. So I can work with anyone. Obviously, like you work with the time differences and everything. But yeah, absolutely open to working with anyone, because I think the themes and the reasons why why I work with the people I work with, I think that's kind of worldwide, not just like complications that are going on in Australia.
For sure, absolutely. I mean, there's
Yeah.
plenty of Americans and Canadians and Europeans that have trauma, and like they
Yeah.
say, yeah, I definitely think it's definitely true that your emotional health is definitely connected to your physical health.
Yeah,
More so than
absolutely.
people absolutely realize, I think.
Yeah.
For sure, absolutely. So what would you say would be the first thing that you would do with a new client to help get them started on that ball rolling to helping them find their healthy and their happy, shall we say?
Well, I find, like one of the first things I do is like I get them to fill out a well-being questionnaire, which is just like a sense of like a gauge of where you're at, your nutrition, your fitness, your sleep, your stress, your life balance, everything like that. But I think one of the more important first things I do with my clients is I just get them to tell me their story, because, as we've kind of already broached on in this conversation, is like when you're dealing with these conditions, you're dealing with so much and you're going to health professionals and they're just not hearing you. So really, I'm just asking people, what's been going on for you? Like, what's been your experience? How has this all come about? Um, tell me what's going on for you. And I try and create just a generally safe space where they feel like they can talk about their condition without feeling like they're being judged, or without feeling like I'm going to come down on them and be like, oh, you should just think about it this way, or like you shouldn't put your attention on it, or think about something else, kind of thing. So I'm just trying to create a space where they feel like no matter how repetitive their condition is, or no matter how complicated it is, or whatever's going on for them, that they can still come to me and just explain to me, hey, this is what's going on, this is how I'm feeling in this moment, kind of thing. So yeah, so I'm really just, to begin with, just getting them to tell me what's been going on and what they're dealing with, and just trying my best to listen to understand and not listen to try and fix what they're dealing with, because it's not for me to try and do that. That's the work we're going to do together that's going to help them hopefully lead towards creating better circumstances for themselves.
Yeah, I love that because I really feel like, and I've heard this from other people too, that one of the proud challenges that we have in a lot of traditional, healthcare with most doctors is not only do they, not really know how to treat a lot of these things, but they just really, at the end of the day, they don't really listen. Like you go
No,
in
they
there and you
don't.
have 5 minutes in the doctor's office, and it doesn't seem to matter what you say to them, and especially if you say something to them that they maybe find a little bit shocking or controversial or something that they're maybe not expecting. It's like they just brush it off aside and don't really
Yeah.
actually listen to you.
Yeah, and I used to find it, especially if you show emotion in their office, like they're just like, oh, you're just too emotional. Like, it's just in your head, and like I just, yeah, it's like you think about the industry and you just think, I know became a doctor because you wanted to help people. I feel like that's why you would have wanted to get into that profession. But like, I don't know, you just, when it comes to chronic health, the health industry at the moment is really just missing something. It's not hitting the mark with it. And it's not, especially for like long-term treatments with things, because these sorts of conditions, like, they took a long time to develop. They didn't just come overnight for most cases. And same is going to be for your recovery. It's not just going to happen overnight. It's going to take its time, and it's going to take support and help and resources. And I find that, yeah, it's just that the industry at the moment is just missing the mark with all of that.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a worldwide thing too. I feel like
Yeah.
that's not unique to the US's healthcare system or anything like that, because people like to complain about US's healthcare system all the time, and I'm like, well, you know what? Some of the challenges, they exist all over the world, no matter what
Yeah,
healthcare system.
yeah. Like, Australian healthcare system, we're very lucky over here. We have a really great healthcare system, but we still have the same problems with the lack of listening and everything like that. I think it's just culture at the moment, and I think as we can all start to see, I think cultures are starting to shift and people are starting to become more conscious of what's going on, and like hopefully it's starting to move in a better direction for these sorts of health
Yeah.
conditions.
For sure. I feel like, if anything else, one thing that this whole COVID pandemic has done is help wake people up to the reality
Yeah,
of needing to
yeah,
maintain good
absolutely.
health, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And just fingers crossed that that keeps progressing in that direction is what I'm hoping to see.
For sure, absolutely. So along with that, Monique, what do you feel like aspects of what you do makes you unique from, say, like, other types of health or wellness coaches that might be out there?
Well, me personally as a person, I'm known as a very unique person. Like, I'm just quite a quirky person, a bit unusual, don't fit in with a lot of people. But I'd say like what makes my work unique. I think one of the things that makes like my work unique is a sense of like, I'm not a health Nazi. I'm not going to tell you that, you have to go eat lettuce to help your health condition, or like you have to do a particular exercise regime to help you. Like, I'm very much in the sense of like, your body best. Your life circumstances best, and you're going to best navigate what's going to suit you and what's not. So I'm putting you like in the seat of you tell me what you want to do, you tell me what's going to work for you, and like, and just take it a lot easier on yourself. I think what I noticed in this sort of industry, in the health industry and the coaching industry, is like it starts to become a lot of pressure on people. It's like, if you're not doing everything, you're not doing enough. Or like, if you're, you know, and it's really forgetting that everyone is so individual. And some people, like me, myself, like, I love health, I love being in this industry, but I'm not like, up at 5 a.m. every day going for a run or whatever. My approach for myself is very gentle as well. Like, I'm always opting for the more gentle things. I'm opting for listening to my body. What's my body want to do? Like, at the moment, say in the last couple of weeks, my body's been very exhausted, and I have to factor that in. Like, it's stressful, with like COVID or like whatever's going on in life. And like, when stress comes up, my symptoms and everything can come up as well, of like my old health conditions. So like, it's a very gentle approach, and like, I'm not pushing myself. And I do the same with my clients. I'm like, what's going on for you right now? Like, I have a client at the moment, and she's moving houses, she's working full time, she has a rescue, she has a whole lot of stuff going on in her life. And I'm like, okay, well, like, let's just really bring it back to the basics. Like, can you do something for you? What's one self-care task you can do? So I think, in the sense of like, what's unique about my work is I tend to stray a little bit from the whole idea of how like being on top of your health is absolutely everything. I'm more like finding joy, finding happiness, finding peace for yourself is more important than, like, how you feel. To me, is going to be more important than what you're doing. If you're doing things that you think is taking care of your health, but it's putting too much pressure on you, it's making you even more stressed, or it's just burning you out, then to me, it's not taking care of your health. And I'd get people to like bring it back a bit, and just like, do what your body's calling for, rather than what all the professionals, or you can go to any corner on the street and there's new advice on what you should be doing with your health. So yeah,
Yeah, there absolutely is. It's like there's
so many
there
approaches.
There's pretty much just as many approaches and advice about what to do about health and nutrition and wellness as there are people almost these days.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I
And it
like
gets a
that.
lot, and sometimes you really have to step back, and you're like, "Fuck," like, oh, sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to swear on here, but, yeah, it gets a lot. You just step back, and you're like, "Oh, like, what do I do? There's so many people telling me what to do. Okay, well, what do I wanna do?" And, yeah, and that's a balance, like, trying to figure all that out as well.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. It definitely is. So then, at the beginning in your intro, you mentioned this, and I noticed this on your website that you also are a Reiki practitioner. So, what
Yeah.
role do you feel like Reiki plays in people's journey and their health and their wellness?
Reiki, I love Reiki. Reiki's such magic. And I think that what Reiki does, in my own personal experience of what I've seen with like other people I know in the Reiki industry, what I notice what it does is that it helps bring up for you the like the blocked energies, the blocked emotions that are going on in your body. And again, like we've kind of spoken about a little bit, is like, to me, a lot of health conditions is like symptoms of emotions that are trying to be expressed. So for that, what it's going to do is it's going to bring up those emotions for you to be able to release, for you to be able to deal with, and then when you're able to express, when you're able to release those emotions, deal with those emotions, find out what's actually churning inside you, it's going to help what's going on with your health if you can find that way of working with it. Like, my own personal experience with Reiki, I mean, like, when I first got into it, what Reiki did for me is like, because when I was originally diagnosed, all I got told was like, oh, you're just too stressed, you need to de-stress. And like I was just looking for any sort of solutions to find out what was going on, and I somehow stumbled upon Reiki. And what it actually did for me is it actually brought up like a repressed trauma from my past that I didn't actually realize was there. Um, but and like and then and what then that kind of came to was like the repressed trauma was actually one of the reasons why my body was messing up so much. It was again like my body was trying to it was kind of everything was like bubbling to the surface and the symptoms were starting to show. And then so through the journey of Reiki, what Reiki's done for me is it's helped me continue to try and bring up those emotions. Me personally, as a person, like I wasn't like, I was raised on a farm. Like we weren't really brought up in a very like, high emotion environment. It was very much like, oh, just get over it, move on. So like as an adult, I can sometimes really struggle to bring up emotions because I was just like, you just how you like, it's just kind of like how things go. So where I find Reiki is really helpful is like if I'm really struggling, Reiki is going to help kind of bring it up a little bit more and moving through like, especially like if you're dealing with like really heavy emotions that maybe you're a little frightened to deal with. And of course, like if you are, like obviously seek professional help as well. But Reiki is also going to just bring them up a little easier for you and help you kind of digest them a little bit. And I think some people I have friends that I've been telling to do Reiki for years, but they know they have things they need to deal with and they're too terrified to do Reiki because they're like, oh, I don't want it to come up. I don't want to deal with it. But I think it's important to remember is that Reiki only brings up like what Reiki only brings up remnants at a time for you to be able to process through it and then get it done again, and then it's going to bring up a little more. It's not going to bring it all up out at once I mean, like most, like, depends what's going on for you. I don't know, I find it hard to explain sometimes, but yeah, it's just going to help you shift those blocked emotions that's going on inside you, so then it can help you progress forward in your healing journey.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've done it actually a few times. I remember one time I did it with a big group of women actually at like it was like a women's business networking event. And we had a lady there that was a Reiki practitioner and she did it with a lot of us. And I definitely thought it was helpful. I mean, personally, I didn't come up with any big, grand revelations or schemes or big, aha moments, but I still thought that it was, it seemed pretty interesting and pretty useful for sure. So
Yeah, and if anything, like you come out of it, I always come out of it just feeling a lot more peaceful, just a lot more relaxed, and like, and sometimes I just go to it for that, just in the sense of like, oh, I need to de-stress. Okay, I'll go get some Reiki done, because it just kind of helps in that way. It's like coming out of a massage. It's kind of a similar
yeah.
feeling.
Kind of almost like to some degree like a form of guided meditation kind of.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
So Yeah, cool. That's awesome. Yeah. So I was just wondering about that. And then the other thing I was going to ask you is what do you feel like the number one thing that somebody who's been diagnosed with a chronic illness should do? So, let's assume you've got some kind of a diagnosis of some kind and you're overwhelmed and you're like, what do I do about this? What would be the number one piece of advice you'd have?
Well, I think first of all is don't be mad at yourself, don't blame yourself for the condition you have. Sometimes these things just happen, and it's just the next path to go. I think if you chat to anyone that's been through serious health conditions, I think they'll tell you that it's made them into the person they are, and they're quite happy, like they're quite proud to be the person they are because it's taught them a lot. So it is going to lead to a lot of growth. It's going to lead to, a lot of things for yourself. So I think, yeah, what I would say is be gentle with yourself, be kind with yourself. And I think it's about finding health professionals that are going to listen to you, even if you just find one. I think through all the different people I found maybe one or two that actually did understand a little bit. I mean, it's not always their fault they don't understand. Like a lot of these conditions, they're not well known and people don't really understand. So just find maybe one or two. Find a good group of, like a good friend or something as well that's going to understand. I think one of the keys is just that support, finding people that understand. And if you have people in your life that are not really on board with it, aren't really taking you very seriously and kind of just dismissing your experience, I mean, don't be afraid to just kind of stop going to them for help. Stop expecting them to give you the support that you want because they're just not going to. I think that's something I commonly see is like people get very upset, say like family members or friends aren't responding to them the way they want them to, or aren't really very accepting of their condition. But yet they keep going back thinking that things will change. And it's like, I think it's realize that, they might just not understand. They might just not get to that place. And it doesn't really matter what you do. It doesn't really matter what you show because, the more you try and prove to people that you actually are unwell, the more you're putting a lot of focus on what's going on with your condition and your symptoms will tend to, what I used to find is my symptoms tended to exacerbate around the people that wouldn't believe me because part of me is trying to be like, look, I actually am sick. Like, you should see this kind of thing. And I also think it's really, really helpful is one of the things that really got me through is using a journal. I was journaling every night. I was journaling all the time about what was going on for me because by the time you get to the diagnosis, you've probably been unwell for like maybe a good 12 months or more. Some people don't get a diagnosis for a few years. So you've already dealt with a lot and you are still dealing with a lot and you're still going to be dealing with quite a bit. It's going to be a journey. And I think a journal is something that's really helpful because you can just really just mind dump into it, anything that's going on, all of the dark emotions, everything that's going on for you, because these kinds of experiences going through chronic health, it gets very lonely, it gets very disheartening, it can get, the world can start to seem very, very dark because you can start to think, what's the point? Like, I'm well if I'm not going to get better. Why am I even bothering? Like, so I think one of the saviors for me was really just to journal all of that out and just to put everything in there, no matter what was going on for me. I would just put it in there and journal it out, and I would always come out of it feeling that little bit better. So yeah, it's all about, for me, it's about just taking care of yourself, being gentle with yourself, and I think that's the key because what I do notice with people. I think people with chronic health, I notice with my clients is they beat themselves up because they can't do as much maybe as they used to be able to, or they can't do as much as they perceive their peers to be doing. Yet they're the ones that are doing the most because they're constantly pushing themselves because they want to prove to themselves that they're okay, or they want to prove to themselves that they're just as healthy as they once used to be. And they're always pushing themselves to the point where they're burning themselves out again and then they're hitting a relapse and they're seeing their symptoms again. So like you probably are doing more than you think. And it's a reminder that recovering is hard work in itself. Like you really don't have to be forcing yourself to be going back to living exactly how you once did in this moment right now. Some things can take time, and just do what you can in this moment. Don't try and feel like you have to be doing it all. And try not to put the pressure on yourself, because I can assure you, like, if you do start going down that healing journey, you will start to see progress, and it really does start to, it feels like a snail's pace. Like, I remember going through it and just like, this is so slow, recovery is so slow, I feel like I'm not progressing. Then I would look back 6 months ago, 1 year ago, or whatever I was going through, and I'd be like, wow, like, I actually really have come very far. Like I said, I lived in the UK last year when I was really unwell. I couldn't even walk from one side of the room to the other. I was too unwell, without my legs giving way or whatever. And then to be living overseas and working full time, which I never thought would ever be ever be possible again. I just never thought I'd be well enough to do any of that. Was amazing. And just to sit there and reflect and be like, wow, this hard work really did pay off. So, you know, it just takes time, and it takes a strong connection with yourself and what's going on with you internally. So, yeah, I think just being gentle with yourself.
That's awesome. I love that advice. I love the journaling advice too. I actually talk all the time about journaling, and had
Yeah.
a couple other episodes where I've talked about, like concepts of food journaling and journaling as part of a morning routine and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I love that. But yeah, for sure, because you beat yourself up over different reasons. You might have a chronic condition, you might have an autoimmune condition, different things like that. It just doesn't serve you to do that.
No.
So yeah.
Yeah. And then you get like, you can get frustrated with your body and be like, like, this body's just not doing how I want. And then you beat yourself up, and then you get, upset or angry. And then those emotions are just adding to the cycle of it again. So, like, and you really just end up in a snowball effect. So a lot of the time, I think a lot of this, the whole thing is really, like, a lot of the time it's always coming back to, when I found the most progress is when I felt myself being like, okay, if this is as good as it gets right now, if where my health is right now is as good as it's going to be, how can I make my life as fulfilling as possible right now in this moment, if nothing was to get better with my health? And coming to that place of acceptance is when you start to really start to see a little bit more progress, because you're not pressuring yourself so much, you're not pushing yourself so much, and you are just a little bit gentler, and it gives you that space to be able to open up a little bit more to whatever the next step in your healing journey is.
Yeah, that's awesome for sure. So that was pretty much the questions I had to ask you. Do you have any last words of wisdom before we end?
I think, well, there are a few people that I would highly recommend people follow if they're looking for some help with, like, natural healing and everything. And that's Dr. Joe Dispenza. Has been a huge help for me, because he does a lot of research into heart and brain coherence, which is a new space of where the where things are going. I would talk on it a little bit, but I'm still learning it myself, so I don't want to speak on something I haven't fully comprehended yet. But I do find all that sort of research very, very helpful in how to understand your body and how to put your body into a healing state a lot better. But other than that, I think we've pretty much covered everything. I think, yeah, like, the main points are just be kind and gentle with yourself, really, which is the same thing as wellness always comes back to, is like, be gentle with yourself. But it's so easy to forget, and we all do forget, and we all get caught up in things. And sometimes it's like, oh, I can't just be that simple, but sometimes it really is.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. That is really simple. Yeah. So I will put the link to the show notes. So if you want to connect with Monique, you connect with her at ardourwellness.com. And did you have any other places that you want to list for people to connect
Yes.
with?
So I have a Facebook and an Instagram. They're both at Ardour Wellness, so ARDOUR Wellness. I'm not super active on them all the time, because I just avoid screens a lot. But I'm trying to get better. And yeah, if you like, even if you just are feeling a little lost, a little confused at the moment, I mean, just feel free to reach out. Sometimes it's nice just to have someone to talk to. Or even if you are interested in pursuing something, up until your first consultation, consultations are free, and they do go for about 90 minutes. And it's really just about gauging, where you're at, what you're after, what's going on for you. And I'll never Like, I'm not really interested in trying to sell to someone if I don't feel like we're gonna work well together or anything. Like, I'm just here to try and help people that are looking for particular answers of how to get through things. So yeah, and that's all just on my website, that you can find that at ardourwellness.com.
Awesome. Cool. Well, it's great talking with you, Monique. I'm sure you've shared a lot of really great information that people will
I
really
hope
find
so.
valuable. So thanks for thanks for talking with me. And yeah, we look forward to following you in the future. And hopefully some people will reach out and take advantage of your offer to help them out.
Excellent. And thank you very much for having me. This was very exciting. I enjoyed it a lot. So
Awesome. Cool.